I had one today and I set it.
So on the heavy cut on paper, just do it like grab it. Yeah, it's so heavy. Yeah.
I thought I was.
I'll try that and see if I can keep it up.
Yeah, he's got a little 10.5. I've been playing with that. He's got the quick attach so that
But none of.
older guy going outside.
You can try not to take out all
I
of
think
your
it's
spot.
like-
No, you're
Brush
totally
off
fine.
tiller.
And I'm like, all right, I'll swing it. We're good. We're good.
Yeah, dividers. Mine's just a reverse. And it just, you know, for what I do, it's like, but I need it. One of them, they got 6 or 8 foot disc.
So what's your next race?
Punishment this weekend at the, oh yeah, over there.
Okay.
Nothing on the schedule. I squeeze that one in, it's like, oh, it's close.
Might as well take
Yeah.
time.
Yep. Didn't realize it. Running for like. Way longer than I ever thought. We all set when you're.
Yep. We're all set. I did want to mention to you.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a minute, they've all been approved already. But on here, signatures,
Okay,
you're on the second page in this packet,
okay.
but then the code note is on the second page in this packet. There's a whole bunch. Usually the bank flags them for us, but this time,
Okay.
just go through each one.
Got it. Thanks for your All right, 6 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. And roll call, looks like all members present with the exception of Jeff Draxler. And I think the next action is the board financial audit for this month, I believe Jordan and Amy. Amy's first time. Whoever wants to start.
I can start.
Okay.
So I reviewed, there's another big Amazon bundle of miscellaneous. So I think reviewing that, overall, a lot of the Amazon purchases are, I think, coded well and descripted well. But a lot of those, when they roll up, there's not a good description that kind of summarizes the whole bucket. But I mean, they all look like reasonable purchases in there. The other bucket I looked at was the adjournment payment, so that's all of our e-learning. I think there was over 23 courses, it was like $20,000 some in online curriculum or coursework that we paid for. All look pretty straightforward. Yeah, I was just curious, it doesn't like tie out to classes. I think it's got like a count, but it wasn't really descriptive in what the classes were or how many students are taking them, so that might be interesting to review.
We're doing an audit of, at the end of the year, when classes are done, of who did what, because this was our first year. Edmonton it's been an okay experience for our first year. We're actually looking at different vendors.
Okay.
WRS, Wisconsin Rural Schools has an online system and so on, so it's still under review.
Yeah, that might be something that'll be interesting to trend as we still keep doing more of our e-campus.
We do actually have a document that says what classes are being taken by whom. So we have that already started.
Yeah. The only other one was you had some reimbursements, so I just double checked because I think we talked about that might be a good standard.
Absolutely.
Pizza checked out.
I would highly encourage you, like I said, my whole career, I think every meeting, everything that comes out of my account, I've looked at. So.
All right, anything else there, Jordan?
No.
Amy?
So it's quite interesting because I came in early this morning when I had time and I looked at those exact same things. The admentum, I talked with the ladies in the office and they said it's very vague. They're working on trying to, get the billing to be more specific, but from admentum, it's very vague, which I don't know, they should really itemize stuff and be very specific when they're billing. Audio architects, that was a really big one for the, it was like 45,000. And that was a very vague billing too. I cannot stand when they, like, okay, all this equipment and then this is the total that you owe. Instead of this piece cost this, like, and they said, yes, that's very frustrating when it's not specific. But that all checked out, the miscellaneous purchases, same thing that Jordan, I think I looked at the same one. What's interesting, and I talked with Deb about, is on those miscellaneous purchases for people that, like, myself, that look through the accounts payable, to see a big Amazon purchase like that, and you're like, what are they buying from Amazon, But actually, we looked through it, and it was a lot of Beth Davis's grant money that she earned, and applied for the grant and really worked hard on it. It'd be nice if we could have that, for people to know that, look, this is grant money that she wrote a grant for, she earned, it's not just extra money going to whatever on Amazon. And then another thing I looked at, well, I just kind of glanced over in the accounts payable, was the youth apprenticeship, the amounts going out to the youth apprenticeship kids. And I wanna, this is a compliment towards, is it Ms. Johnson?
Sure.
Okay. My son participated in the youth apprenticeship over at St. Croix Central. And there's nowhere close to what these kids are getting out of the program that he got. You know, yes, he put the hours in, but there wasn't a whole lot given to the kids. Whereas she puts the money towards clothing for them, tools, you know, and it's significant for these kids to start off. So I just wanted to say kudos to her for, you know, taking that money and really using it for the kids. That's a huge deal, I think.
Yeah, we made the decision to, because when you look at it, I mean, kids are buying $150 boots. Kids are buying tools that they will use, and they might not even go back into what they're working for. Amory's probably the leading YA school in our area. St. Croix Central is obviously bigger, but a lot of those schools do put the money back into either Fund 10 or they put it in other areas. And we just made it a obligation to make sure that our kids are, unless they get a little crazy with it, puts it back into what they could use. Because it does cost, whether it's scrubs, whether it's boots, whether it's tools. Sarah does a really nice job of saying yay or nay if it's questionable, but it, again, it's just kind of a philosophy to make sure that it does.
It's nice to see, you know, the kids are earning it and they get rewarded for it, you know.
So everything is reimbursable. So just know that it's not coming out of, you know, a separate account. So.
Okay, well, thanks Amy and Jordan for doing that this month, and yeah, I like your idea of highlighting the grants. I don't know, maybe when we're done, it's just something, an idea, I guess, if everyone's all set up, take a picture of it. And we've got our creative content director over here.
For grants?
Yeah, if we got it all spent or if we have it all set up, we can say, hey, this was all grant money.
When it looks like expenditures, except it's money that we
Yeah, there's a couple ways. So the one document that outlines different grants that are awarded, it's in our strategic direction. It kind of isolates that, but you also have, in terms of the overall grant summary, I don't know if we have anything like that.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that in the last month's policy review. I don't know if we need to be doing something, because that was kind of, there was a couple audits in this policy bunch that I don't know that we've really done. So.
Well, there's no requirements in terms of an audit that you have to outline as grants, because when you dig into it, it will be outlined as the revenue as, I mean, again, you're not going to see it when you do a review like that, but when the audit is taking place, you'll see the revenue as a grant. Principal is from a grant. So surface level, yeah, I mean, there's people that, whether it's Anne Marie, whether it's Beth, I mean, the number of grants that are coming in to offset various funds, we'd be sitting, because even in my prior district, we actually toyed with the idea of rewarding staff a percentage similar to a grant writer. So if you're a grant writer, you get, it's almost like a co-curriculum. So if you get a $500,000 grant, or let's say a $1,000 grant, you get 3% or 2%. The problem is now is everything from the federal government to the state and to most organizations, it's grant driven. And so I think you'd lose some value right there. But, you know, you could do a 0.5% or something that, because it does usually take some type of effort to put forward and bring that money in. So.
Okay, I think that completes item C. Item D is policy review for the 7,000 series of this property. We got a chance, any questions?
Yeah, I think kind of like I mentioned earlier, there was a couple of, you know, reviewed on a regular basis that the board reviews. I think one of them was a physical inventory every 2 years. And I just, you know, I know we've got the drivable equipment list, you know, with all the buses and the cars and vehicles, but are there other things that are assets that we're maintaining or depreciating on a schedule that we need to be auditing, you know, like tech ed equipment or anything in the art room or cafeteria equipment that we need to purchase to set up the commons cafeteria? So I think there was like a $15,000 asset limit So like everything over that, we're supposed to be listing.
Yeah, technology, we do have, there's a software that outlines what we have in terms of in stock and what we have, but some of those others, as far as, an overall inventory list, each department keeps some of them, but is all centralized? Absolutely not. We're not there yet, so.
I wonder if as we do like our facilities workshops, as we get those kind of back into a regular cadence, is that
Yeah,
maybe we develop some agendas for those workshops so that we kind of highlight what some of those annual type style reviews are.
yeah, and I don't know, like I said, there's a, technology is the one that I'm aware of where it has a software that does that, and it's coded based on, barcodes or whatever, but some of this other stuff that's appreciable, like a, tech ed equipment.
Yeah, I think of like the routing tables and stuff like that, those are pretty big assets.
So, but yeah, we certainly are not don't have anything like that right now.
Any other questions on the 7,000 series? We'll go to item E, Mental Health Awareness Month.
So Bonnie Barker is a retired school psych and former special education director from Boyceville. And she's been with us for a number of years as our school psych, and then this last year she retired again. However, she led our school psych because our school psych was not fully licensed, so she served as the mentor, which allows us to get through the state fully licensed. With that, Bonnie has done a great job over her career, but she's very passionate about mental health. And so on a yearly basis, she always wants to remind all of us, including the board, of Mental Health Awareness Month. And that is this month in May. She also likes to give little trinkets to remind you of the importance of mental health. So I would encourage you to read through the presentation is electronic. It also is in paper next to you. And then the trinket was paid on her behalf. That's how strongly she feels about mental health, and I think we all agree that it's something that we need to continue to focus on, as it's becoming a major roadblock for not only students but staff. So thanks to Bonnie, and if you see her, just give her a thank you. Otherwise,
Okay. Patrick, any questions on that? Otherwise, our first action, approval of the agenda. You want to entertain a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Motion by Jody,
The second.
second by Scott. Any questions? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed by nay. Agenda is approved. Up next is the open forum procedures. And looks like we have one community member who's here to speak. So just an awareness, if you want to state your name and address, Joan, as you start, and then usually it's a 2-minute duration. I don't see anyone else here to speak. So in that event, no objections, we can provide additional time.
I promise I won't take much more than that, but it's not gonna get done in 2. Joan Bartz, N 12095 County Road Q, down Wisconsin. I did give you each a packet that talks a bit about the playground. It shows what it's going to look like. There is a hole right about here. That is where the existing swing bank is and will stay. So there's going to be 6. The 6 swings that are there, we'll get probably new swings for them, but the unit itself will stay. But I'll leave you with those. The Community Foundation of Glenwood City was founded in February of 2025. Our mission is to make the small rural community more prosperous, inclusive through education, improved infrastructure, and the promotion of arts. Our first project is the revitalization of Hinman Park, focusing on replacing the outdated and broken equipment at the park. Our original budget for the project was $250,000, but we're close to wrapping it up for much less than that. We raised $78,374 from the local community in a very short time. I believe that's a true testament to the importance of this park project to our small community. And an interesting fact, Anna reminded me today that our Facebook page went live 1 year ago today. So, to see what we've done in a short time, I'm pretty excited about that. In addition to community support, we received $2,500 from a family trust in River Falls, a grant from St. Croix Electric for an ADA swing, a grant from Semstone for 6 cubic yards of ready mix for footings, including delivery and fees, and over $1,000 in Thrivent Choice Dollar directions. Other donations in kind include Bobcat and excavation work for site prep, labor on the cement work for the sidewalk, and all of the wood fiber materials we need, which is a huge donation. I think that would be 100,000 right there. Patrick, you probably know because you did the 1 year. We've applied for several larger grants from Kubota, the Community Foundation of Dunn County, and most recently, we're waiting to hear back from a grant application from T-Mobile. So far, we've been unsuccessful in these larger grants. We feel this is in part to the fact that while the city has been very supportive of the foundation itself, they're going to be taking out the existing playground equipment and helping with site prep. They haven't really had a financial buy-in, and I think that's hurt us in the larger grant writing. We will hear about the T-Mobile grant by the end of the month, and if we do get this, I'm kind of excited about the partnership with the school. $22,000 will go toward installation and $10,000 for sidewalks, but $5,000 of that will go to public art. With the Glenwood City High School art department leading the painting of murals and garbage cans, and $1,000 to the Glenwood City High School Makers Lab for custom signs and raised garden beds, and $1,000 for plants and trees. Of the funds that we've raised so far, we've spent $58,792, and you can see in your packet what we've bought so far for equipment. It's a 35-foot zip track and an obstacle course structure. Last year at our, what do they call that, the summer kickoff the summer. We had a, maybe it was National Night Out we did it, but we had Post-its and we had people vote, and obstacle course and zip track were the things that they most wanted. So we got those two. Also a toddler play area for ages 2 to 5, and a swing bank with the ADA compliant swing, and also a parent-child swing. To complete the project, we'd like to purchase 3 more pieces of equipment, which would include a large play structure for ages 5 to 12, which would replace the one that's still there. A mini world kind of merry-go-round type structure, and an arch swing or a tire swing structure. These 2 smaller pieces are both ADA compliant, and the total cost for all 3 of those pieces and freight to deliver them is $41,873. The Community Foundation is asking the school district to help us purchase those last 3 pieces from your Fund 80. I did some research on that fund, and I know that it's used for purposes separate from normal school operations, for programs to serve the entire community, not just K through 12 students. According to the Wisconsin Department of Education, or the DPI, common eligible uses for Fund 80 are community recreation, community parks, and programming, among others like daycare and after-school programming, which you do a great job with your Fund 80, or our Fund 80. By including those 3 ADA components and the sidewalks around and hopefully through the playground. We don't have that shown yet, but we're hoping to have some through the playground as well, like you do here at the school. We feel that the updated park will be more inclusive to kids of all abilities and make it easier for our elderly adults to enjoy as well, thus making it, I think, a very good use of Fund $80. It's my understanding that the school is looking to purchase another bank of swings. We've talked to Dan Lane from MWP, which is where we're buying the materials for our equipment from. And he has promised that he will extend the discounted price to your equipment if you partner with us. And he can also have it delivered with our equipment, so that would also save the freight costs. And I don't know this for sure. Anna's kind of one of the number cruncher on it, but from what I can see on the billing, it looks like that discount's about 32 or 33%. So it's a significant discount. We feel that this is a great opportunity to work together in a win-win scenario and help you build rapport with the community at a very important time as you're exploring the referendum process. I'm speaking with the city council meeting tonight, so if I duck out of here, don't consider me rude. But I am going to speak with them as well. And like I said, while they've been very supportive of the foundation, they have yet to be able to put any dollars toward it. But giving them some grace, they don't have a Fund 80 and things are running a little tight. And for those of you that live in the city, I understand they just had a main break this last week too. So they're running pretty lean. But even if they do find some dollars to support this project, we can anticipate there being additional costs as we get to the installation phase. We know the basketball courts need resurfacing and we'd like to add benches as well. So I'm not concerned about us finding ourselves overfunded. I would ask that you please consider the importance of this park to our community and the great timing for the goodwill and rapport building that it could be for the school district. I'm asking you to support the community that supports the Glenwood City School District. Time is of the essence as we're hoping to purchase the equipment the first part of early June. This would allow us to have delivery and installation completed hopefully in time for Rest of Lord. I thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thanks, Joan.
Thank you, Joan.
And if you're interested, I don't know what your timing is or how it works, but I do have the invoice for those pieces of equipment and installation.
So that's coming for us.
Thank you.
Is it a copy for us to keep?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Joan.
So just a reminder, because we have quite a few new board members, for future wise too, making sure that during open forums that we don't respond, we don't make comments, we don't ask questions. It's simply you sit there and listen. You don't interact, you don't have an exchange. That's not the purpose of that, because then you go against it and trust me, it will come back and bite you later on. So just a good FYI as we move forward, but certainly thanking somebody is not against the rules. So thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Okay, good comments, Patrick. So that concludes the open forum procedure. We'll jump down to the consent agenda. Any questions on the consent agenda or anything that folks want to pull out from on the list?
I had questions about the approval of Cowbell cyber insurance application. I looked at the application and had a few questions as far as what do we get for coverage? How much do we pay? The only dollar amount was the revenue expected over the 12 months is 14,000. And then the questionnaire.
Yeah,
So
14 million. 14 million.
14, oh,
Yeah.
Was it 14 million?
Yeah.
14 million is the revenue. So what do we get for this?
So basically this is the application and then we go through our insurance company along with our commercial grade. So this is then sent to, so if you look at the application itself, Frank fills out some parts of it, I fill out the other parts. In terms of the overall, if you look at our existing, which I don't have in front of me, but our existing insurance policy, because this is a renewal, it would have those items on there, and I can get that for you, Scott.
Does that answer your question? Do you want to pull it out or are you, does that answer your question?
Well, right now we're just voting on the application,
It's
correct?
just, yes.
I would like to see what that entails. If you could get that.
Yep, I can get that to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I saw was there was a couple of resignations in there and the feedback was very positive about their experience at Glenwood. I was just curious, do we typically perform exit interviews to kind of gauge, why people are leaving the district and maybe use it to support, improving retention?
Yes, and no. So the employee handbook is still not finished, that didn't exist, so it's still a work in progress. In terms of, doing exit interviews, I personally meet with them and have a verbal exit interview, as we finish off. But in terms of an official document, we are not there yet. But in terms of, and some in prior, and again, we can make, there's changes here on the board, which we'll discuss some things tonight. I put them in consent because, again, based on the circumstances, people will ask, well, why are they leaving? Read the resignation based on law. That's what I have to reference. But in terms of, in these two situations, it was made really made a lot of sense for each of these individuals based on what their goals are and where they go. Are there going to be resignations in front of you that were because of something negative? Absolutely. I mean, I'm not doing I will tell you again, if I'm not making people mad, I'm not doing my job because to push the envelope and keep consistent. With these two situations, they made great sense, and I think their comments within the resignation also outline their experiences here. So
Yeah, to your point, and obviously we're not in a big school district that has an entire human resource department, but it would be nice if we find some way to start tracking, like just a point of reference, so that we can look back over time and know.
Yeah, I do have a form that I used in my other district as part of our overall employee handbook. It's just a matter of putting it all together.
We as a board, several years ago when we had a lot of resignations, created an entire exit interview. I don't know if we still have that information, but we created that and sent it out to all the staff that had resigned to get feedback.
I have not seen that.
I can look in my stuff and see if we have it, but as a board, we decided on questions we wanted to ask, just to kind of keep him out of it, because obviously,
I was just looking for it too, Jody.
Do you remember that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Found it, but it's a deleted Google Doc, so.
okay, yeah. So, I mean, we don't need to use that specific one, but it might give us some ideas of what we can use to form one.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one more.
Yeah.
But it's kind of recurring. There was a bunch of expenses in there for the cooler mechanical updates again. And it's just, we keep seeing them, and then, we talked about it with the facility dashboard. And it's like, how do we use that to tell, are those kind of planned budget, or are we starting to exceed budget with those? And how do we kind of
Based on the
use that
presentation I
snapshot?
gave you guys last fall, I mean, that is the reason. You're actually sitting in next to another area where the compressor went out on Friday. So I've actually, if you go back, and I can resend it to you, but every time we have a situation like that, I take those bills and I put them back into our facility strategic direction folder. So now we can always run a report to see, but no, none of these things are budgeted. These are all, and that's truly one of the reasons of going to a hydro system and replacing all 29 rooftop units, because they're pricing themselves out. And when they were first purchased in 2016, they were, according to Cool Air and another mechanical contractor, they were kind of the lower end of the, I guess, models that were in existence. So we're definitely, I mean, again, compressors have gone out. You're looking at, you'll see it next month because it's out, especially with the cool. But Cool Air was here actually the last couple of days doing their PM for this spring, getting all those started. And then Masters Controls, which is a separate company and does the control component. They're coming Wednesday to look at all those things, because weather has not been favorable in terms of using the AC pieces. But yes, that's a huge concern of mine.
Yeah, that's where if they're all in one spot, it'd be nice to
They are.
take a look
yes.
and kind of just anecdotally, it's $7,000 this last month. So, I mean, what is it every month? That's kind of part of that referendum story that we're going to want to put together. So,
Yeah.
I'll resend it to you, but if you look back in your Google Drive and when it was the November something work session where we talked about facilities, there's a separate folder of just Cool Air, and that will give you an idea line by line what we're spending on those rooftop units.
So do you have money in the budget set aside for incidentals, like just,
Absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
so this isn't like you're running a fine line here.
Yeah. you know, and the hard part, Amy, is that we are still, and again, I sound like a broken record, but we are still in creation mode in terms of a sound budget. And what I mean by that is, even tonight with curriculum, we did not budget that amount just because we are so far behind. If you read, and I actually just, once we get to it, I'll outline it, but David Popko wrote a summary in his process where they haven't addressed high school ELA curriculum until 2021, and then they were forced to just spend a little bit of money, not till Dr. Curtis went and took them through a true process. Was that budget at the beginning of the year? We talked about what that needs to be, but we have no idea what the needs are. We had to go do an inventory of what every teacher is doing. It's just part of our process now. In terms of your question about the building, yeah, we have an overall buildings and grounds budget, and then we have that set amount, but incidentals or whatever you want to call them, things that have happened. Just in my 2 years here, those amounts it's crazy. Whether it's a boiler, if you look at this one, in no way did, so I'll just pull it up so you can see. If you look at the cool air here, when they were on site, and this was just part of their PM back in February, these things were what they discovered after. For example, perform boiler maintenance, which is required. Now keep in mind, this was not done since 2018 prior to me. So you think of that 5-year period, by statute, every one of those boilers should have been inspected. They weren't, nor were they even taken care of. So when I was hired, we actually spent a chunk of money just to get those things back up in terms of certification. Now we're seeing some effects of those to where, right now it was tripping on low water flow, excuse me. And this actually happened the night of Parents' Night here for basketball. So it was, we were here late that night and we were inspecting because we were wondering why it was cold out. But then you can see, the fallout of that. So there's a lot of things, I guess, going back to my comment, Amy, of, did you properly budget for, some unknowns? Yes and no. The number of amounts, I'll give you another one that's going to be coming in front of you in the next 2 months. We have to do an RFP. Every one of this spring, we lost a door opener and we couldn't get a bus out. Well, then I had the door company fix it because we had to get the bus out. And then I said, can you please do an assessment of the openers? They're all 25 years old. And he goes, they're ready to go. They're going to snap and they're just going to go. And we got, I think, 8 of them. And so those are the types of things where that preventative maintenance or even just general maintenance, we're seeing the cost of those. Because I'm not saying that the boilers, this couldn't have happened if it was taken care of, but knowing that for 5 years it wasn't inspected, it's just a matter of time before that sediment and the buildup and so forth, because they weren't properly filtered, they weren't properly inspected, they weren't properly kept up in preventative maintenance, you're gonna pay the price. And so when I come to you 4 years later, or 3 years since I've started, and say, hey, we need this. Well, Patrick, why weren't you up? Weren't you up to date on this? And again, I don't like to make excuses, but in the same regard, it's like, how did we get to this point? And that lack of maintenance, not because of Bob, he worked his butt off. And I've met with him a number of times, and the same old discussion was made. There's no money, there's no money, there's no money. And unfortunately, we're seeing some of those effects with especially rooftop units. So I don't know, like I said, I didn't need to, I need to kind of tell the story of how we get to this point, because even building that budget, It's things that I have no idea,
How to forecast.
well, yeah, and even the door openers.
Until it happens.
Now, we're looking at, that's a $20,000 to replace all those openers, install them and so forth. And again, we're on borrowed time. So I'm trying to, when I say we're building the budget, we're trying to forecast as well as we possibly can. But sometimes they just scaffold so much where you're just playing catch up. And tonight's another example of curriculum. We should have been. You'll see it in David's, because I'll pull it up. I mean, you literally go through a curriculum cycle, which every 3 to 5 years, you're replenishing, you're looking, you're reevaluating. Well, when you used to have a decade of where you haven't even addressed it or more, so.
And that was one thing, like, when, we've been using the financial scorecard for 2 months now, right? So that was one thing Laura and I were talking about for stuff like that, that's non-standard or maybe not budgeted costs. How do we use that tool to help us see the financial impact to our plan, right? Of how much fund balance do we think we're gonna consume throughout the budget cycle? So I think it'll be kind of fun to see how we start using that tool a little bit more.
And we're still going through line by line with Laura and Deb. We have it scheduled in the next couple of weeks where we just go through, here's what was budgeted, here's what we spent, here's the surplus, or here's what we went over, just to get to that. And again, this year, and it's hard to say, but we had to see how the budget played out. Where are we over, where are we under, and then start making some appropriate adjustments.
Yeah.
Sorry there.
Yeah, no, that was a conversation. I think we kind of know our 7 million spend potential with the capital investment, and then it would, if the referendum comes to fruition, it would be nice. Maybe Tim has something from past experience of kind of that strategic capital expense over a 5-year horizon or whatever it might be. So we start to budget those in the financial plan. Okay, with that, any other questions on the consent agenda? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve as printed.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Got a motion by Nicole, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jordan. Any other discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Voted by nay. Consent agenda approved. Administrative reports.
So since we just had a meeting, I gave our administrators the night off due to graduation and a lot of extra time put in. Plus, I always want to make sure that those reports are not just forced, that they really showcase. So I'm going to take them over. And the first one is 2026 summer school. The first thing I want to outline is, again, we are expanding the summer meals to be throughout the entire summer. Our first go at this was last year, and I came from a district that we did this, and I can't tell you how important it is to have these meals and this food accessible, especially when you look at where our percentages are. Really looking forward to having this beyond summer school, which was what we did last year. We tried to do a soft start. And then this year, we're expanding it into all of July and all of August. So thanks to Alyssa, we are expanding her contract. And she's actually the only one that is needed to put this together. So Fund 50, we're still working out. That is definitely one of those funds that we have work to do for a number of reasons. I will be bringing to the board an increase in funds, or in terms of lunch costs this summer. Biggest thing is my recommendation last summer was to freeze it based on where we're at this year because of higher commodities and a lot more funds that are needed to keep Fund 50 afloat. We're going to have to raise prices, most likely by 10 cents. So more to come on that. In terms of summer school, This is not public in terms of all this. We actually just got this, but I'll bring it up in terms of we have students who's doing what. We also have our responses based on transportation. And right now we have 2 bus drivers that agreed to create some time in their schedule to provide transportation. And we're still looking at where those 2 will be. But in terms of summer school, we always felt that that was one of the limitations from families, is just how to get here. And so we're going to try it with those 2, and again, venture out and see what the cost is. And it's a 3-year rolling average for summer school and how that counts as an FTE. So again, we're taking some of my experiences from past and putting it to work here. So more information will be coming, but in those documents, you can see how many kids are in summer school, which is up on a preliminary note. So we'll look forward, but Jamie's doing a great job of trying to get those things and making some appropriate changes, including the fact that years past, there were some limitations where you as a staff member could only say yes or no to teach. Well, now she's saying, I'll take it for 1 week. So if a teacher wants to teach just for 1 week and teach that class, that's a win-win. And same thing with kids. Kids were, and we only ran summer school here for 2 weeks, which never really made a lot of sense to me because most other districts do 3 weeks all of June. And then there's carryover into July and August with athletics, tops, etc. So anyway, all the information is there. I'll give a final report here in June, along with what classes are running and what teachers, because we will have to get them contracts. So more information to come on that. Staff appreciation went very well this year. One of the things that we do here in Glenwood is based on, it's not teacher appreciation. So if you look at the monograms and the messaging at the federal or throughout the United States, it's always teacher appreciation. I have always been an advocate of this is staff appreciation, because we could not do what we do if it's not for the paraeducators, if it's not for the bus drivers, custodians. I always felt it was a slap in the face. So we term it as staff appreciation, and we offer it to every single individual that's part of our team. This year, Jamie took it over and did a tremendous job. And the one thing that I will, and it's behind here, I would encourage you at some point to click on that staff appreciation journal. It was a activity that was instituted this year. And really, I think the term that comes to mind is just the culture that we're trying to build here. And I think if you read those comments, if you read some of those interactions with how that was outlined and who was taking pictures and adding to it, I, as the superintendent, sit back and kind of just smile and say, this is the type of culture we want to try to build. So did a lot of examples there with pictures and so forth. So a lot of work by our administrators, because we, again, we try to keep Krista out of it. We keep everybody else out of it. We just, as administrators, plan it and try to take care of it. So there's certain things we can't do, like graphics. We can't do what Krista does, but for the most part, whether it's the meal, whether it's the other things, it was administrative based. So special thanks to Jamie and Aaron and Richie and Sue, just to make this a special week. Shana Hoffman also, through the parent connection, did a tremendous job. They've taken more of a deeper, I would say, assistance with it too, and recognizing it and doing different things. So again, an appreciation to that group that is taking part in making our staff feel appreciated. So it was a great week. The last one is, again, I'm not gonna go through these, but again, just in a short amount of time, we have a variety of really, I would say, extraordinary things that pop out in terms of what we do, the activities that are presented, conversations that are had, thank yous, you name it. And so I just encourage you to click on those photos and graphics. A lot of them are what Krista makes. Others of them are just ways of like the senior meal and so forth. I think it gives you an idea of some of the just activities that we try to incorporate to give the kids the best experience possible. Any questions on staff appreciation, celebrations, or summer school? All right.
Not seeing any. Thanks for covering it. We're appreciative of all of the staff that we're thankful to have. So glad we get to celebrate them.
Yeah, the fact that's 29 pages long is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, that was new this year, and it was really, again, powerful just to see the participation. It shows a lot of, because we want people just like our kids, we want them to walk into the school with a smile on their face and excited to be here. Well, we want the staff to feel the same way.
There was only one concerning photo. Mr. Nargis took one, and it was kind of down this hallway. Yeah, I don't know if he wasn't working that day.
Yeah.
We're not sure about his judgment now anymore.
He did that the week before. I'm like, what are you doing? I had no idea what he was using before. So I did learn later on that. Yeah.
All right, that gets us to the business action items for discussion. Item A, approval of 25-26 common school funds planning purchases.
So if you look over the board recommendation, basically we started the year with $75,599. This common school funds, we've had some record, I guess, I don't want to say it's a donation, but given from the state, and then it's given to individual districts at different amounts. And for us, this is a discussion between administration, Angela Williams, who is our library media specialist. However, based on her licensure, she also has an individual that she works with. And together they come up with different proposals and so forth. Then it goes to administrators. And then the other piece to this puzzle is Frank and I, who meet monthly, and even more than that, we look at different needs that are out there. If you ever look at common school funds and the requirements needed and required to use these funds, it's very strict. And so this isn't just funds that you can, hey, let's put it over here and purchase this. It has to be very specific. So I wanted the board to be aware of where we're looking to, again, try to build ourselves back up. Unfortunately, again, this is one of the questionable licensure areas that didn't exist. Tim does not have the ability to be the library media specialist because he doesn't have the license. So what we did is we hired, and her name, Bonnie, thank you. Bonnie is a retired library media specialist from Menominee. She's been with us for my tenure here, and she has the licensure. So then we're in 1202 that Krista does. We are satisfied that requirement. But Bonnie is a great resource, and we share her with Boyceville, and she does the same thing in Boyceville. Again, when you have 20 plus years of experience as library media specialist. So Angela gets a lot of ideas and some different things from her. The expenditures to date were 12 iPad purchase and miscellaneous expenses that equaled that. And then what I'm asking the board is through our team, we are coming up with recommendation And when we talked, the first conversation that we had was with Frank and said, okay, with technology, is there needs that we need to get ahead of? Well, Frank and I, as you haven't seen it yet because we've had to put it off, but when we have our strategic direction and we talk about technology, we are working on an overall replacement plan. The biggest thing that a lot of schools, the mistake I think that is made is you purchase technology with one-time monies, and then it's not budgeted, and then all of a sudden you have you're asking your board or you're asking the superintendent and say, hey, I need $25,000 worth of Chromebooks. So we put together a replacement plan, and within that discussion, we feel we can get away with what we've done to get us up to a baseline, and we don't need that for next year. So with that said, our focus then moved to, we need more and updated books within our library. We need to have those books in kids' hands. In terms of, everything that is online, we need to make sure that these kids are reading. One of the things that I will always kind of deter people from looking at is test scores and say, well, what's changed? I can tell you one thing that has drastically changed is the amount of time that parents read to their children. Research will tell you how successful that can help your child. So one of the things that we don't have control over is when these kids leave our facility and go home. Now, there are parents that are doing what they need to, but it's certainly not where it has been or needs to be. And so we felt we need to put some money into our libraries for book allocation. So the books themselves actually became a list from Angela and Bonnie at the tune of $49,733. The remaining amount available is $15,900. And then from that, our second recommendation is Jamie needs some more iPads so that each individual teacher has an iPad. One of the things that I mentioned last meeting was our, which we can't use common school funds, but our screens in our elementary we're on borrowed time again. We just are. And they've been replaced once since I was a teacher here in 2006, I think it was. So unfortunately, we're doing everything we can by taking, because they're basically like smart boards. And that's where you can use different tools and click on the screens and so forth. We had different classrooms in the high school that had those. And what we're doing is they don't use that touch screen piece, elementary does. So as a board goes out in the elementary, we replace it with one of these, and then we replace the high school or middle school screen with the TV that is high def, just because they don't need the touch screen piece. So that's another thing that we're working on as far as a replacement plan. With that said, with our new math curriculum, one of the recommended flawed or out of sequence and not aligned with appropriate grade level. That's what our teachers were required to do. Here's the standards. Go Google search and find curriculum that matches that.
Yeah.
That's not successful. That's not sustainable. That's not best practice. And so when I look at these amounts, which I'm sure, you looked at, it's like, wow, where are we going to get those money? I don't care what we have to do. We have to invest in this type of process. I will tell you that the previous administrator in the elementary wanted to purchase some things. And I said no, because her answer to my question of what was your process, she couldn't give it to me. If you look at the process that Sue and Jamie put our staff through to get to this recommendation, it's best practice. They had those discussions. So with that said, the overall cost is still within, because we are negotiating. So I'm asking the board to approve the recommendation that Sue has put together, knowing that there's some leeway that we still have on our bargaining side. And in our back pocket to say, here's what we're looking at, because they always change some of their pricing. But the overall process is what I kind of want to make you aware of and kind of focus on.
I think it's really exciting that we're focusing on stuff like this now. The only concern, I mean, this is our 4th curriculum item this year, I mean, the last couple of months. So looking forward to your point about rotating curriculum. And I just want to make sure we're conscious of that as we're going into subscriptions and things like that, so that we don't have 3-year subscriptions on 3 different subjects all stacking up again.
No, and that's, I think you guys understand the hardship of these jobs right now in here in Cleveland City, because you're just starting from scratch. And we're constantly, like, when you're starting all this stuff from scratch, the timing is not perfect.
Yeah.
But in the same regard, this also will be a scaffolding piece. And that's what's exciting too, is that you approve the math curriculum for Jamie in the elementary. The math curriculum that we're asking you to approve tonight scaffolds, which means it builds off of what Jamie's doing. And again, that's best practice. And how do I know that? And again, I'm not looking for accolades myself, but I can tell you in New Richmond, we were a top 10% school. There was for a reason. We had a wonderful curriculum director, Jess Ferguson, and the things that I learned from her and what our team was able to do is the same best practice that Jamie has instituted in the elementary, and that's what Sue Kurtz came from. So it just takes time. To your point, Jordan, yes, you got to start somewhere, and unfortunately, that's why our focus has been on ELA and math.
What's our current cost for curriculum are we currently putting out?
Well, coming in, prior to me, the first budget, my first year, which was Tim's budget, it was $78,000.
For both of those together?
No, are you talking what was budgeted?
Yeah.
So that's what he had on his budget line item. And
For all curriculum.
for all curriculum.
Gotcha, okay.
Now, within a year's time, I still don't know the final answer, Jody, but I would say you probably could get away with a $50,000 budget line item. Now it's just we need to get something. We need to create that baseline.
What do we have left for curriculum to go after yet? Is there any other curriculum that needs to be replaced or modified?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying that 50,000 is like a baseline when you're sustaining your development?
A baseline year after year. Right now, our elementary reading is okay. Math was the focus this year.
Right.
So I think we got a strong baseline in those two things. Because if you ask me, okay, if we want to be a top 10% school, what do we have to focus on? And here's what my answer would be. Reading, math, critical thinking. Those are the 3 things that I want my children, all these kids, to know how to do. With that, if you say you take social studies, okay, what is social studies? Yes, it's dates, it's times, it's learning from history, but it's reading. If you look at science,
Right.
what's the premise of science? It's math. So when you focus on building that strong of a core, you're going to be successful in those other areas. To your point, one of the things that I'm paying Randy Patola is to write some curriculum based on standards for science, because our new science teacher is coming right from college, and it's a kind of a strong suit for Randy, and so I was comfortable doing that. Science is a little different beast, but we still have science. But then in high school, just take marketing, business, chemistry, physics. I mean, there's textbooks, social studies. I want to get to the point where we offer psychology on site. So there's more that we have to tackle in terms of, but our goal right now is just math and reading or ELA. once we get those things done, now we can look at some of those other areas such as electives, some of those others that are, again, I don't want to say they're less important, but math and reading and ELA is the core right now.
So maybe to Jody's point, do we have some of those curriculums then built into the, like, next year's budget or the 2 years budget? Kind of
We're still, because we haven't built next year's budget, because I want to see how, like, this year is I feel like my first budget, I would say, where I was able to tweak and put amounts down. But I also had to see it play out, just to see how close we are. I will tell you that Brian Johnston, for example, my finance director, it was like clockwork, but it took him 27 years. And I knew we were going to do a carry. If he came and said, we're going to carry over 300,000, I knew that's what our carryover was going to be. Here, Jody was lied to year after year, because Tim and he said it in his one statement, well, we always had 500 to 600 carryover. Well, yeah, I could have millions in carryover when you take away these things and you don't keep your boilers up to date. I mean, I can keep that amount and I can just wow you, but that's not what was happening. So it's still this movable target that I wish I had better answers for you. But again, I feel it's my job to just get us to a baseline of where, because everything I'm bringing to you, it's not bells and whistles.
Right.
It's like the structure, it's the pillars of what we need to build our school off of.
Yeah.
As we're starting to develop this curriculum, would it be helpful to kind of create a curriculum scorecard? I mean, like, where are we doing well from the cores? Where are some of those ancillary next steps of what we want to develop? And then, as things kind of age out, can we see, hey, we haven't updated ELA in 5 years.
Yes.
Patrick, what's the plan?
Yes, no, it's very similar to a technology replacement plan.
Yeah.
It's a technology, or it's a curriculum replacement plan.
Yep.
And again, everything's a little bit different. You build up and say, okay, best practice. And again, people put a non-numerical value of, well, when are you going to go after and redesign your curriculum? Should it be 3 years? Should it be 4 years, 5 years? Well, I think the data will tell you if things are successful, why are you going to change? Now, we might have to buy new software, or we might have to update, the textbook because they came out with a new edition or whatever. But yes, to your point, once we get rolling here, it's the same type of replacement plan.
So in your budget for curriculum, where does this additional expense place you? And if it's over budget, where are you drawing the monies from?
Fund balance.
Yeah.
I can tell you we're going to be on probably 80,000 over on this budget line item. I don't know completely, because the other piece that we added in was eCampus. And once we start adding those numbers in, so again, it's not best practice. And for Nicole and Amy, I've told the board this my whole career here so far, is this is not best practice. You don't sit there and use fund balance, but I have no choice, because I'm not going to sit here and let the current students, especially our high school kids, pay the price, because my job is to make sure that we continue not only recoup what we can, but we got to build. And that's why this job has been so difficult, because typically you would walk into a position and just say, okay, what can you change? Here, it's like you're starting from ground zero. Plus you're doing the cleanup from here. So you're trying to balance. And to your point, fund balance. Where's the 80 grand going to come from? Well, the good part is that even that first year where we underspent by $1 million, that is saving us right now. And that $1 million was to say no to the former administrator that said, well, I want to purchase some curriculum. Show me the process. Well, I don't have. A couple teachers sat down and said they wanted this one. No, that's not good. That makes no sense. So we saved $80,000 that year just on curriculum. Because I said, there's no process behind it. Yeah, you can go and sit there and purchase $80,000, but how did you get to that? Did you go through the entire process like Sue and Jamie have? Nope. But they could come to the board and say, hey, we purchased curriculum.
Perhaps you can talk to this company if you're gonna purchase both of these from them and say, you need to swing us a deal.
Well, so that's why I'm asking them
Or
to
state
just
aid.
approve,
There.
because there is, I'll give an example. My last year in Prairie Farm, we moved from this very archaic student records to Skyward. And in one phone call, I got $40,000 knocked off. And it's just, I'm asking for you guys to approve this, but give me some leeway in terms of I'm still bargaining with them to say, okay, because they always have, it's like a car salesman, there's things that we can maneuver around. So, yeah, I'm asking the board, when you approve it, don't put a dollar amount on it. Just give me the leeway to do my thing.
I like the textbooks, I like the physical part of it because that needs to happen.
I just, again, I want the board to know all the legwork has been done by Jamie and Sue. We're so fortunate to have them. Yes, there's direction and there's discussion with our admin team, but the number of discussions that Sue had with a middle school team that I don't want to say it was the closest, but they are now. And it's pretty, she's done a tremendous job. She really has. So anyway, I could go on more, but is there any questions on anything in terms of what you see?
Basically, the feedback is from the general fund balance, right? We're over our mark of general fund and we're still trying to spend down to that 15% revenue target, right? So that's where spending from the general fund is pretty helpful for stuff like this.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that a motion, I'm just not really sure how you want me to put the,
I would say just
approve the curriculum,
approve the recommendation. And then, like I said,
because if we put it
if you put a dollar amount to it, then I'm
tied to that.
yes.
Curriculum.
Where if you just allow me the flexibility, you can even say that in your recommendation, if you allow the administrator to have flexibility with, the overall, but if you just say as a recommendation, because there's things here that we're still working on.
I'll make it a motion to approve the curriculum review and adoption process as presented, yes.
Okay, thank you, Jody. We've got a motion. Do we
I'll
have
second that.
We got a second by Jordan. Any additional discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Curriculum recommendation is approved. Item C, approval of class of 26 donation.
All right, so the history here is when I got here, there was, when we went through line by line, there was these accounts in Fund 21. And I started to question what those accounts were. And basically what it was is these class raise funds and they go on to graduate. Anything that was left over was then started in an account downtown at Hiawatha for that class. So for example, this year, and I don't have a final amount because we're doing final expenses, but it's right around $1,200. And so previous practice was you could do a couple different things. I learned of one class ended up buying like $1,000 worth of prizes and then they raffled it off to their classmates. which again, is their money, so yeah, go for it. Other classes chose an alternate route, which said, hey, we want to have a 5-year or 10-year reunion. And they started, so Ron Johnson and Tim would start an account downtown, and that money would sit there, and then you could come back and use that money, obviously, for refreshments and their reunion. That makes no sense to me, why we are funding as a district parties that happen 5 years after. So I cut that off, and basically it comes down to like the conversation with this class. Kira Flick has taken it on to her because once they brought up the fact that they would have a surplus, then we talked about possibilities. And so she took it upon herself and formulated this Google form. They came up with these categories. And then ultimately it was decided by, I want to say over 75% of the class chose the K-9 unit from St. Croix County. And I really applaud these kids because again, and they knew full well, they could go out, buy a $1,200 worth of junk or TVs or whatever, raffle them off. And it's like, no, we want to leave a little bit of a legacy. So their choice was the K-9 unit. So I'm asking the board to approve the donation. The total donation amount is not yet determined, but it is roughly around the $1,200.
Seems pretty fitting, because I think we had like 3 going into criminal justice out of that class.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was there a policy or anything that needs to be updated as far as, is our guideline at the end of the senior year that this school for the class fund is spent down? They can spend it however they want, donate it, but we're not continuing to.
I got rid of that language of going down to Hiawatha, and there wasn't policy, it was practice.
Yeah.
So that just went away. As far as this being written, no, we don't have anything formal just yet. This is more practice at this point.
So just as an expense that's gonna go on there to
Yep.
balance them up to zero.
Yep. Because it's right now, all this money is in the class of 26 fund, 21 fund balance. Can use it however they want. I think it speaks volumes of this class.
Do you wanna entertain a motion to approve the donation?
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion by Jody,
Second.
second Scott. Motion and second to approve the class of 26 donation as presented. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Donation is approved.
And for the newspaper and everybody else, I just want to clarify, again, Kira Flick, awesome job. She just took it upon herself because I said, within days, I need a decision. And she's like, I got it. And she took it, created this Google form. You can see, so I put it there for documentation. So kudos to her.
Awesome.
All right.
Andy,
Keep
sell
going.
some buses.
All right, so this is where we're at in our inventory. And basically, I'm asking the board for permission to take 2 buses that we knew in the fall when Ryan was here, because they barely squeaked by for approval with the state DOT and the inspection. And then followed up with Jerry, and these 2, we didn't want to spend any money because we knew that they would not last another year or spend any funds to repurpose them in any way. So just looking for approval from the board to get rid of 2 of these buses via the auction site and get as many funds as we possibly can. But these, again, will not pass inspection, so they're doing us no good.
Whatever happened to the bus that, obviously, that must be one of them that we sold, that they saved, that they were gonna try and do a project with, correct?
Oh, the project,
Yeah,
we sold that
that's so
one.
okay, I was just thinking like, okay,
Yeah, that's,
I assume that one
Miss Birch.
was so, okay,
Yep, Miss Birch had an idea of a schoolie is what it was called.
Yep.
And actually that was my first year back here as the business teacher, and kids did some presentations around it. It just never materialized and took a lot more, so we got rid of that one. I will tell you though, the last 2 buses that we sold, the individual that bought them, and he's gonna be one of my first contacts. Greg just emailed me over the weekend. And what this gentleman does, he actually takes parts from these buses and drives them over the Mexican border. But what he does is he keeps shells for school districts, or not for school districts, but for departments, fire departments, and they actually use them for training. And one of the things that Greg's been a fire chief for a long time, and he's like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And this guy doesn't charge them. He just gives them the bus because he gets out of them what he needs. So it's just a shell.
Okay.
And so Greg and I met with this individual, and the amount of time, if you ever look it up, of where a bus is on fire and the ability to get out, it's pretty scary. And so Greg was going to have everything set up, but he emailed me this weekend, ironically, and just said due to the brush fires and different things that they've had this spring, he's going to push it to next fall. And I said, that's fine. We're here to help you. We're actually going to do it here on site in down where we had the bonfire.
Okay.
We're going to do that as a training ground, but to work with our local fire department. But yeah, I think it's just a great thing. And again, to know that, I think, Greg has been a chief for a long time, and knowing that he can use some of those buses for that type of training, he was all
definitely.
all for it.
Yeah. For what we've been for the amount of training, yeah.
So I'm not asking to replace these buses. They're just taking up space and they will not be approved, and they're not worth putting any money into. And unfortunately, if you ask me, we're probably gonna get maybe $2,000 a piece. That's it. So don't look for a windfall.
It's gonna pay for a curriculum?
Yeah.
It is not gonna do that.
Almost. Might pay for the current curriculum.
And I want to entertain a motion to approve the sale of the 2 buses.
I will make a motion to approve the sale of the 2 buses as presented.
Nicole, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Scott. Any other discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed by nay. And the approval of the buses for sale is approved.
All right.
Item E, approval of commons equipment needed for second serving area.
So I'm thinking you're picking up on our theme here.
Spending money?
But also investing in changes that we feel better the experience here. With that said, if you look, and I'm sure those of you that have kids, especially high school kids, they're eating at 1:30 in the afternoon, which just is not acceptable. Going into this year, especially with Jacob Mays, who has done a great job for formulating and sitting down with Richie and Jamie and Aaron and myself, and really just formulating a team and talking about ways that we can make our schedule better. So if you look at, since I started, we've instituted grab and go to try and offset that time period to where they fully eat lunch, different things like that. The only way that we can make these things work, and again, this has been successful, as I wrote, in many other districts, including New Richmond, Cumberland, et cetera, where you have the main kitchen that makes the food, and then you transport it to different locations. To basically, if we're able to do this, which I really am stressing, please approve this, we now can have our high school's kids eat at 12:30. Now, when you look at the investments, yes, we have we're a system that's on borrowed time. We understand that, especially, and did I include the pictures? I didn't. I have the pictures from the assessment. So we had Brunnix come in and do an assessment of the heating elements, the heating ovens and so forth, and that actually is in really good condition in that commons area. The one thing that is not in good condition is the dishwasher. So what it needs is a thorough cleaning, but there's also, if we're going to do this, we have to invest in some other pieces, which I had Alyssa put together. So you can see it's, milk coolers, trays, scoops, etc. So yes, there's a financial need for this. However, especially when it comes to changing our schedule, this is the only way that we can really make this happen. So to your point, before, Amy, again, most likely using fund balance and fund 50 to try and get ourselves to a baseline. But again, when you think about what's best for kids, eating at 1:30 is not what's best for kids. Because they sit there and they go in their lockers, because 3/4 of them don't eat breakfast. Then they have these crappy snacks from who knows where. And then they just munch and munch and munch and munch. And then it's 1:30 and then they eat. And I don't know what they eat. Well, then if you're a coach, you might have a pregame meal at 3:30. Well, coach, we just ate 2 hours ago. And there's so many pieces to that puzzle. So the investment financially is well worth, and we'll find the funds to do it some way or somehow. That's how strongly I feel about this one.
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, the only thing they're gonna be doing in the commons kitchen is basically serving and washing dishes, right?
Serving, washing, and distributing, yeah. I mean, it's a warming area.
Yeah.
The good part is the heating and warming elements and appliances are actually in really good condition. The dishwasher, it's an eBay thing.
We used to have a surplus of food service dollars.
Yes.
What happened with that?
Spend those? Can we buy something in the regular kitchen?
So what I got here, so there was a surplus and you guys were required to spend it down the year before by the state.
Yeah.
And so there was some confusion because Marcy was in charge of doing
Yeah,
that.
we were.
She had tables on there, which even Lisa came to me and said, we ordered tables and they were never ordered. The graphics, they had a contract for, I could find it, I don't know what it was, like $25,000 to $30,000 worth of graphics in the commons. I actually begged to get out of that contract, and thankfully, and they had no reason to let me out of it. And I just kind of got on my knees and just said, please, we need other things. And that's when we needed some other equipment. So the fund balance, and then the other thing that was used was we had budgeted replacement of the floor in the commons area, but then we ran into a moisture issue, so we had to spend $15,000 to combat that. Because it was part of that floor replacement, it was an add-on to Fund 50.
Okay.
So we had to use Fund 50 for that. So we are not anywhere near that fund balance to where the state requires us to spend down. But something like this, again, we're not talking 50,000. It's still going to be a stretch because I think we're barely just scraping by in Fund 50. I don't have final numbers, but it's not like we're making a lot of revenue.
Your increase is 10 cents per meal next.
Yeah, I think, like I said, this is one of those where it's like special education. You know, our carryover that we spend, 900,000 for sped. Well, here too, we might have to take some Fund 10 money to get this done. But again, to me, this is such a necessity to get some balance within our food service area for our kids.
How long ago did we stop using that commons? Because it used to be, we used both.
Yeah, it was Sherry's days but it was like, I want to say 10 years ago.
Okay.
I mean, it was a long time ago. And that's part of the reason that
I think we were using it when I was here as a nurse.
were you? Yeah. I don't know.
In the office, we were using it.
Yeah, I don't know why she went away from it. I know they weren't using it when I was here, came back here.
Sometime in the last.
That or the staffing too with.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, because I think there was a time where you guys partnered with Boyceville, with Sherry.
Yeah. Sherry will go back.
Sherry would go back and
Oh.
forth, so I think there was some of that. I don't know all the details, but.
So my question on those lunch tables, I know I had talked to you about it. 4 of them, I mean, they're like around 2,500 a piece, is that about right?
Close, probably.
And those aren't figured in here, so that's another 10,000?
Yep.
Is that something that like you can like get out of next year's budget? Is that why it's to be determined, or what?
We're gonna see, because I wanna take a more of a closer look into, because this is what Alyssa was kind of going off
Like the
of.
flow of it, to see
Yeah,
where you're at?
because this is kind of new, it's like so if we have to take a couple tables and bring it down this hallway, so we'll do it. So some of these things are gonna be based on, again, the final dollar amount hasn't been decided because we have to take a better assessment. Because even at the end of the year, we always assess the equipment, say how many tables are just crap, like we can't even have them anymore. And we haven't done that, obviously. That's what we do in the summer.
And there's no reason we can get that money out of the community ed fund, because we also use those tables when we come in for
Summer events
community
and-
sporting events and other, I'm just thinking tax-wise, business
Yeah.
And summer
wise.
meals, right?
Fund
Um,
80, we will have.
I know, it's very tight, like what you can use and what you can't, but I'm just, okay.
I will resend, because Fund 80 is always a fun conversation of the requirements, and I will
I mean, I know
resend that
there's a
to you.
strict, like, you know.
Because even with what Ms. Barth said tonight is all accurate. But I will tell you this too, is that we're not close to what some of the needs we have here in terms of Fund 80. I have just kind of, again, we got the basic of what playground equipment we have, but there's definitely between Beth and Jamie, there's more requests in that area. So again, and I sat on this committee and Joan, they did a great job of formulating this crew, but I will send you the requirements of Fund 80, which really puts, to Jody's point, could you, similar to Tim,
Is it worth?
he purchased
No,
a
we're going
bus.
to-
You can't do that. That's like an obvious one. In Richmond, we contracted with PD for an SRO. You could do some of those partnerships. Certain things of capital, like tables and things like that, it gets really dicey. Like, you know.
Yeah, I don't want us to put us in that position, so I
Yes,
just
no,
didn't know, because.
I won't let you get there, but
No, yeah, No.
that would be a stretch.
okay,
Because it's not a daily use.
gotcha.
Trust
That's what
me,
we're
yeah.
designating that.
But it's a
purchase.
good document for
Okay.
all of you guys to hear, because we have a fund balance at Fund 80, so that you can actually see what the requirements are. It's a pretty straightforward document.
Okay, a lot of discussion, anybody want to entertain a motion then to approve the common funds equipment needed?
I'd make that motion.
Got a motion by Jordan, do we have a second?
I will second that.
Second by Jody, thank you. Any discussion? Otherwise Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed by nay. Motion carries, approval carries. Item F, approval of creation of full-time mechanic, transportation
Okay.
coordinator, ground assistant.
So, I want to thank Derek because, this is the first time here in Glenwood where we did an agenda review, which is something that I'm used to doing. And I went into detail with Derek, in terms of, well, how did we get to this point? Long story short, I would say is, when I, was hired, one of the first hires that I recommended to the board was to hire Ryan McVeigh, who's like a Swiss Army knife. He could just do so many things. At the time, currently he was the transportation / mechanic. He, worked on submarines in the Navy. I mean, he just is very talented in many areas. Tim never replaced Bob Swanepoel, so there was a chunk of time there where the director or supervisor, I call him supervisor of buildings and grounds, was not hired. When I took the position, I said that I would not, I knew what I was walking into a little bit, I wouldn't take people backwards. So at that point, I sat down with Ryan and said, is this something you could be able to do? Because we don't need a full-time mechanic here. Well, then what transportation responsibilities are there? So when you see all the names of Ryan McVeigh, when you see Christy Smith, when you see Jerry, when you see Randy Catola, those are all items that are in this mixture of, I was trying to move people to, number one, not take away compensation, because I just was not comfortable doing that, and Randy Catola was one of them. He was a teacher that was beyond a teaching scale, and which makes no sense because you shouldn't be above the teaching scale. So then I assigned him as transportation coordinator, and then we went through that process, and it became too much with his teaching load. So then that's where we got into Christy, and Christy did a great job. And I wish she was still with us. She really did well. So then we hired Jerry, as you know, and we did kind of a part-time. If you take all those things together, including the added documentation, I think fiscally it makes sense for us to see if an individual out there exists, which means when you add up Christie's stipend, her time both pre and post in terms of down to bus garage, when you take in Jerry's time, when you take into account what we're paying Mike's auto body to do, when you take into account what Blaine Brothers does, when you take all of that into account, I think it makes sense for us to move in the direction where I'm not taking anybody's job. Jerry, when he took this position, knew that this was somewhat of a Band-Aid. And then when you add in the custodial component, where there's times where Tim does need extra help. And so with that said, my recommendation is to create a position to have a full-time mechanic, transportation coordinator, and grounds assistant, and put this all into one. Now, does this person exist? I don't know. So I'm asking to post it and see what happens. And if we don't get any bites, well, then we're going to have to piecemeal it together, similar to what we do this past couple of years.
Isn't that basically what Ben DeGrosse did and Mike Mounds did for the years that they were here?
I think so.
Okay.
I think they were, I don't know if
they did the grounds.
I don't know if they helped out with grounds.
Yeah.
But
Mike with Paul Snow and stuff back in the day.
okay, yeah. So I know Ben, just because he's obviously on staff now. I know Mike, but I haven't had that conversation with him. I actually tried to get him to take the mechanic job. He turned me down, but yeah, I think at one point you did have a
Something very
similar type
similar,
of
yeah. I
model
think so too.
that existed. So, the other addition to that is that I think we have a little bit newer fleet. So some of those things, is advantageous for us. In talking with, Jordan Loggy, again, I told the board this, where they even have a mechanic, but they, take all their, trucks and so on, and they mics to change oil. He's like, you cannot beat what they do. So that's why we outsource that. And then I talked to Phil McCarthy, and he said, yep, we had a truck that was worth 15 grand. And he goes, nowadays, you take it to Blaine Brothers and 5 grand. He goes, the truck was literally worth 15 grand. There was something wrong with it. We take it to Blaine Brothers. It was 5 grand. Now the truck has 20 grand into it, but you're still going to get 15 for it. I mean, it's like when you hit a deer, it's going to be 3 grand minimum because of plastic and so on. So the outsourcing is kind of a balancing effect. Jerry is doing some of those things. There's other things that he does not have the ability to diagnose because he doesn't have that software piece. However, we did find down a software component that he feels he can make work. He's in contact with the company to try and get the update because we do have one of the plugins. I've also looked into Scott's piece in terms of, I think John Deere has it and some of those others. Bluebird doesn't have where you can, I don't know, what did your terminology, Scott, was like, you buy this package.
Remote systems diagnostics.
Yes, so Bluebird does not have that ability. International does, some of the big companies like John Deere and International do, but Bluebird does not. So I think down the road at some point. So I met with the drivers and I did get the question, Patrick, are you ever considering, going to where you outsource all transportation? I said, yeah. I said, I cannot sit here and say that that's not an option. We did that in New Richmond. There's a variety of districts that can't find the bus drivers, and we're not to that point. But I can tell you that last week we have drivers that will not drive in the Twin Cities. And so we will be having that discussion here sooner than later of looking to outsource transportation to Culberson or some of these other companies. I personally would like to stay away from that as much as we can, but at some point when we can't fulfill the sub drivers, we're going to have that discussion. With that said, I'm still thinking that this is the best solution if that person exists.
They'd specifically have to be a diesel mechanic too, right?
Well, our buses are actually gas, so
Okay.
we're starting to turn over, but it also comes down to the diagnostic tool. And again, Jerry was working, so I brought that $20,000 one to you. Can't think of the name. That's where we explored different options, but in his cleanup process, he found one down there. It was just outdated software. So he's looking into, he says, if we can get the updated software, I think this will work. But there's still things that we would have to outsource to Blaine Brothers, just which we don't. For example, the most recent one was the brakes. We don't have the technician tools to bleed the brakes and put the proper pressure in. So Blaine Brothers had to come and do that.
The concerns that I have with this is, for one, what are we going to require as certifications or experience for somebody for only $50,000 a year? It seems like it's going to be hard to find somebody at that. I know what you're saying though.
Yeah.
But the basic mechanics that we might expect would be oil changes and brakes. I mean, those are fairly simple and easy to do, but it sounds like we can't do brakes here. And for oil changes, it's more cost effective to take them to Mike. So with the complexities of these vehicles that we're buying and getting into, what will the mechanic be able to do on them, that looking at this list of different things that we've had to bring the buses in for, what could the mechanic have done here on site, or what would have had to have been shipped or brought somebody over to see?
The first one, the 50,000 is just a placeholder. That's not what we're going to, but to Scott's point, so if you look at, when we started to think about this months ago, I started to have Jerry put down, what does he work on? So in his timesheet, he has to list out what did he accomplish. So this one was from April 16th. Land ride mower deck program remote for Blue Shed. Spent time on the east door. Installed starter on Bad Boy mower. Follow-up work on bus 10, which we have a separate document that tells what work has been done to bus 10. Ordered headlights for bus 4. This is a bad one because this is when Christy was leaving, so I had some crossover training for that. This was from March 1st. DEF bus 2 worked on Bobcat, the one we sold, checked on parts for bus 6, installed bus 12 radio, picked up parts for Bobcat. Bobcat checked all ordered parts. Switch on bus 6, talked to Ben on bus 3. Check CEL on bus 5, removed codes on bus 6, installed brakes. Bobcat sensors, kingpins on bus 2. So there's still some of those minor, I don't want to say minor, but the
It's not
things.
heavy mechanics.
It's not heavy mechanic, yeah. Check kingpins and part brake on bus 2. Finished kingpins on bus 2. Ran ECU to Blaine Brothers for bus 6. Rinsed buses, greased buses. CEL on bus 5. Fixed the stair tread on bus 4. Interior lights, tracking engine codes.
So he's doing more, it sounds like more just basic maintenance.
Yeah, it's not like, a diesel mechanic that's taking a transmission and, diving into pistons and things like that. It's truly, but a part of it is the software recognition. But so when a code comes up, and I think all of us could do that. Like I have a tool for my older trucks where, it tells me the code and here's the part, and I go in and just takes a little bit of elbow grease, but do this. Most of us pay a mechanic to do that when you probably can do it if you know what the code means.
Well, especially with all the sensors. A lot of times you just need to know what the code is to swap a sensor. That stuff keeps us out of Blaine Brothers, at least.
But we have a fleet of a lot more than just buses that he's working on as well.
Yeah, so if you look at,
A lot of vehicles.
if you look at the bus that you approved, the bus sale, you're talking trucks, you're talking mowers, you're talking, there's other things. If it has a motor, Jerry's taking care of it. So again, and I'm fine either way. I'm just trying to keep things as efficient as possible, looking at where we're at and how we're going about it. 50 grand was just a placeholder. I don't know. If you got somebody at Blaine Brothers, they're probably making what, $100 an hour? I don't know. I'm sure the cost is or their salary is pretty high because they're probably have schooling and certifications and so on. We need more of a maintenance person than we do a mechanic.
So is Jerry,
Sure.
I don't know, is Jerry full-time? Like, is that what he does? What?
No, Jerry is, he only has 15 or 20 hours. a
Yeah.
week.
Is that
I think it was
because
15 to 20.
is that because he chooses to be or
We
because?
hired him.
No, I
that way.
capped it. My recommendation was to cap it at 15 hours per week.
We had a transportation coordinator, we had this, he was just our,
So is that something that you could put, make him into like a full-time if he's interested or no?
No, this was a part-time thing, so he has a full-time job, and
Okay,
he does this on the side.
okay,
So he works at, I don't know, but he's a true mechanic. And he comes here at about 3 o'clock. That's the other part is that, okay, if you come at 3, when the buses are basically going in a half hour, or they're going out the door, and then he leaves at 5:30, when do you work on the buses? I mean, that was one of the questions I asked him. So we don't necessarily need a true mechanic. We need a
you
maintenance
need an all-purpose.
mechanical person.
Sure.
And do they exist? I don't know.
And I think with the range and the benefits, there's flexibility there.
Oh,
You
yeah.
might just see what's out there.
Yep.
Anybody who wants to do it.
But then you keep Jerry on still, you said?
No.
Okay,
No.
okay,
Jerry, when he was hired, it was, again, he's got a full-time job. This was just a sidebar for him.
they do exist, cause Ryan McVeigh existed,
Well, Ben and
and
Mike,
Ben, and Mike, they exist.
they do.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of,
If we can entice them.
I just, like I said, I apologize for all the back story, but I want you to understand how we got to this point. Because one of your first questions, if I was a new board member, like, why did Randy Capola, where did he come into this discussion? Once again, he was above the pay scale, and I had to make it make sense. Because it didn't make sense at the time.
I think from a retention perspective, I chatted with Ryan a couple months ago about all the hats that he wore, right? And it's just, that wasn't what he was looking for. So this is, I think, the right size of the role. So I guess I'd make a motion to accept this posting and evaluate this position.
Second it.
Okay, got a motion and a second to approve the creation of full-time mechanic. Any discussion? The discussion I had, it looks like based on the expenses that we've tracked so far, it's probably like 40 grand.
Yeah, that's what I kind of did the math on, like the two at least that we're paying hourly would be like 44,000
Yeah.
annually, but.
But I ran the numbers too.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of this miscellaneous stuff, and again, that's where you add in the grounds part. So they would assist with whether it's mowing, that type of thing, to make it all one. Because when you add up the numbers, no, it doesn't.
For sure.
But that's where, again, this also was, Ryan was here until October. Christie was here for 1 year. It's truly been a hodgepodge. So it's really hard to actually put it all into one and have it flow to what it looks like on paper, if that makes sense.
Well, there's things that aren't quantifiable that having a person in that position could make a lot of other lives easier potentially.
Yeah. Great if we get some consistency and could do snow removal too.
Well, and that would be, if we do find the right person, that conversation would come back to you, because we set a 2-year in terms of snowplow where, we wanna do it on site now. We wanna invest in, a plow ourselves and one of those, because machine wise, they're getting better and smarter. You could lease some of those machines. If we had the right people, we could do it easily.
Sure, we've got a motion by Jordan and a second by Scott for the approval of the creation of full-time mechanic. And no other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Approval carries. Item G.
So, in the next, 2-3 weeks, we're gonna go line for line, so I will have some better, more detailed budget pieces, as we close out the year. I was actually pretty excited, for our government to finally show some bipartisan and put some support into special ed funding and follow through with their process of promises. To hear Voss and Governor Evers, together, I thought it was a done deal. And then this happens. So long story short, if you're wondering what happened, and again, I hate politics, and if you ever want to talk politics, I'll talk it, but I could care less what side you're on. Tom Tiffany got involved, and I personally, I've heard him and I have spoke, and from what I have heard, Tom Tiffany got involved, and he's running for governor, and it put some stall on this, and then I don't know what happened. So it's pretty disappointing. I did have personal conversations with Rob Krybeck, who's a representative for our area, and Bob Staffschul. And again, I think we all thought, there's a high likelihood, which this would have helped us. But now we're back to square one. So with that said, we'll see what happens. I know there's a variety of communications going out there to reconsider. But when you have that amount of surplus at the state level, and you have not fulfilled your budget requirements for the percentage for SPED, that's where it gets really frustrating. So other than that, I just put in some of the conversations that we had with the state and so forth. So I don't know if you guys have any questions or comments.
I mean, a lot of that funding and updating the Baird model is really just our preliminary budget for next year.
Correct.
Right, that we're trying to develop.
So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. I guess I'm back to where I didn't think there was going to be an agreement, because I didn't think Tony and Voss could get along. And then when they did, I was like, wow, this is awesome. And then it's torpedoed by other people and thinking, can you people just put your differences aside for once?
What I heard is that it passed the House and failed in this section.
Yes.
So I guess, do we as a board ever, should we all be reaching out to our, local Senate representatives, or should we delegate somebody to kind of communicate and vouch for approving that? How does that usually work?
Here's what I will tell you. As this board gets to know each other, you're going to hear me. I stay away from the political piece. I really would deter you from taking political stances. Because all you're going to do is alienate different people within the community. That's not our job, is to go down those paths. Can you individually reach out? Yeah, I do it. I don't care who you are. I reach out to the representatives and say, for example, in New Richmond, Rob Staffschul's daughter was a New Richmond grad. So him and I would sit down, and he just wanted my perspective as a superintendent. He still does the same thing. We have a lot of disagreements, but we're cordial enough to sit down and just say, hey, here's what, you're supposedly the expert in this area. I want to hear from you. And that's what I respect about Rob. So, but some of these school boards, and again, if you guys want to go down this road, I would shy away from it if I were you, but they create resolutions, and they start to create some division based on who's in their district. And so, yes, you can always contact legislators based on your position as board members, but as a whole, I would really deter you from taking those stances, because we got every which way, in our district. And sometimes those things can come back, and I know they've hurt districts before.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So, I'll have more and a better update, detailed, next month in terms of budget.
Thanks for the update there. Up next, under communication, sharing of communications.
All right, I just want to, on the administrative content, and again, I apologize because if I haven't told you before, please always make sure that you're logged in and you can see what I put on the administrative side. So in the administrative side, who can see it? It's everybody that typically sits here, administrators, etc. If you ever see something in the executive content, it's only you. And me, that's it. She can see it, based on her being the overall, but she's obviously, that's part of her job is confidentiality, and she knows that if she'd share it, she'd be done, so. But that's content that even I don't share with administrators. It's very rare, especially when I get to know and trust my administrators. But just know that when you log in to see those things. Tonight, I did put, and you guys saw my email, and so I contacted, once I got back to my office after we tore down some things for graduation, I sent an email to Derek and said, hey, FYI on this, because that's what I feel the board president's job is. And then I shared it with you guys this morning as we kind of do a game plan. I did not feel comfortable based on, changing. A similar concept when I took this job is I did everything in my power not to have closed session because I heard through the grapevine, and people do, they say, well, if you're going to closed session, you're just not being transparent. So I did not have, unless I absolutely needed it. So the same thing with the agenda. I didn't want to change the agenda. Tomorrow I plan to send a staff update, talking to, I told Derek this today too. As a superintendent, if Krista, and she's not, I'm just using her as an example, if she would come to me and say, I resign, I would go to my office, I would send her an email, and say, you resigned at 8:04, I accept resignation legally. That's legit. With this is one of my bosses, so I can't take that. So because I wasn't going to change the agenda, I'm asking the board unofficially to verbally accept his resignation. And if you do that, then I'm able to share with the staff, but more importantly, I'm able to post tomorrow to get the process going to find a replacement. We find ourselves in a, again, June 8th, we're going to meet and we're going to talk about referendum questions. It's May 18th. So I want to get going on this. So with that, I guess, do you informally accept this resignation?
I mean, we have to.
You don't have to,
Well,
but it's
it's not coming back.
semantics, yes. So if you say yes, then that allows and say, okay, I could put in my message, the board verbally accepted his resignation, which, yes, Jody in a sense, but it's legal terms. So then I let staff know because I need to let staff know because when they see a posting for a board member, they're gonna go, what? Well, who's gone? And we need to be upfront with our staff. So then we post it and then we set the parameters of it and how long you would like to. So and again, I can't change the agenda, so we're not gonna go into this because I can't get off and have this whole discussion, but I put it in this section because it is a communication and how I'm gonna communicate to staff. And if you wanna have another work session this week, to how you want to address this, great. We could do that, or we could just follow what I sent you. This is the board vacancy, and here's what we need to do. And then you appoint. And I've gone through the appointment process. We appointed here in a couple different times, so it's pretty straightforward. The posting is the first start.
So just from a strategy to your point, we're gonna have data back to review on the 8th, right?
Correct.
So we'd obviously want to fill and have somebody sworn in before then, so that we don't have to repeat the data review that's gonna drive the next year of activity. And how,
But we do have the majority still.
Yeah, I mean,
If that was correct,
right,
Yeah.
okay.
It would be nice, but I don't
Yeah.
know if we could get that done in 3 weeks.
yeah, so I'm just curious what the goal is to try to fill an empty seat.
I agree with those comments. It'd be great. I don't know how doable it is, because what happens is that we post it, we set the date, and then you guys interview the candidates. I don't even sit in on it.
For the last appointments, how long was the period for,
I have to look
Open.
back, Scott.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
Do we do 2
it's
weeks?
posted for,
Derek, were you on that one?
I tried twice,
Yeah.
unsuccessfully,
You did too?
but I don't.
I think we
No, I
all
don't
have.
remember how long it was posted either.
You did
Yeah.
too? So did I.
I think, yeah, I will look, I guess again, I'm a rule follower, so I don't wanna go off, because this wasn't on a formal agenda.
Yep.
But I will put stuff together and we'll kind of communicate via email. We got another good lesson today was I use text because it's the fastest way to get to you guys, but please just don't respond to the group, because that's a walking forum. And I do that all the time, in terms of, if the police are here, I want you guys to know, the rule of no surprises, I live by that. So with this, I'll get and look back on different postings we have. I don't know how, maybe how long we left it open. I'll find out that, and then we'll put together a timetable through, communications, and then go from there.
Yeah.
I want to stay away from having this discussion
Yeah,
with
so no
others.
decisions need to be made tonight, no motions, we just need to, I'll say if we're going to,
If you're okay,
be
yeah.
okay approving the resignation.
If you're okay with me moving forward with the posting, then I'm gonna communicate with the staff. I don't plan to go to the public, but with staff, I think they need to know, because they'll see the posting.
Yep.
I already have this on the 8th agenda to approve Chuck's resignation. So that will be one of the first things to do on the 8th, and then we'll go from there.
Any objections?
The other communication that I had was the expulsion. And again, this is another learning opportunity. We'll talk more about, what expulsion is. To Scott's questions, I can't share with you what the expulsion entails, because when you come in here, it literally will be set up like a courtroom. You have Trevor will be in the middle. You guys flank him, and then administration sits on one side, the family sits on the other. We present, they present, and then you decide. The basis of this expulsion is death threats to an administrator. So.
And I've been on several, and sometimes they don't even show up. I mean, you never know what you're gonna get as
Yeah.
far as like the students or parents or, some don't present at all. It's so,
I did 22 of these my first year in Michigan. Yeah, we expelled. My philosophy has always been, I want to hold the power, so we expel them and then we bring them back, because kids make mistakes.
yeah, there's usually,
But in this scenario, you'll see my recommendation and why. But I won't go into details, because again, it's very similar to a court proceeding. We just don't have a judge.
In this case, it's at the end of the school year, so we're expelling him for next year, or just removing from the district, or?
You're expelling them, you're always expelling them through their 21st birthday.
Okay.
So this is for their duration. Now,
Sure.
again, in Richmond, out of the 22 we expelled, 21 of them came back on an improvement plan. Like, we allowed them back in if they did X, Y, Z. The other one was selling drugs on property and like, no. The board said, absolutely not, this kid's not coming back. The others were other offenses, so.
Okay,
So, right now, is there, I know, let me know if this June 2nd works for you, so that I can plan, and again, I just need a quorum, so I just need 4 people. So, just let me know then.
June 2nd or the 26th?
May 20th, June 2nd.
June 2nd, I moved it to this, cause there's plenty of people that have,
Yeah, with other stuff. Yep, okay.
baseball, regionals,
Okay.
track, etc. And then Trevor was actually full with expulsions.
Is that
The rest of the-
the thing at CISA?
That's the first.
Okay.
I'm going on the first.
Okay.
I was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first.
Yes.
Yep.
And then the other one I'll be in contact with is setting up with Derek, Scott, and Jordan. You guys talked about the compensation. I would like to get that going. So I will be in touch on that too. That all falls under communications and meetings.
I guess the only other question is on the community foundation request, is there a, do we need to put that on an agenda for the next meeting, or is that something we want to consider as the board?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. Patrick and I, when we went through the board review, one thing I had him ask or add that I've seen on previous boards is to future agenda requests. And so we'll probably try to have this on the agenda going forward, so that if you are hearing things from the community or there's other things that you want to have on the agenda, this would be a good time to add it. So
Yeah.
anyways, with that said, yeah, we obviously had Joan come and speak tonight. Is that something that the board would want to add as a discussion for a future agenda? And I think the intent would be, again, for the Fund 80, and if we would want to entertain using that.
I think it would be a great review for us, just in general, with the Fund 80 and what that is and can look like, because if it's like, well, it's obvious, why would we engage in a whole conversation elsewhere? So, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it would be a good discussion. I mean, she came in.
We can look
she
at
did
it
her
individually, the
homework
Fund 80 thing that you're gonna send us, Patrick.
First work on.
Yes.
And what we've done in the past is we always let Lisa know by like, I don't even know, the certain date for her to put agenda requests out to administrator. Hey, we'd like to talk about this individually, you know, not us as a group. And then she'd add it onto the agenda before Thursday when we had to add it in or something.
Yeah, that works too.
So don't feel like you have to put it in today, like if you
Yeah.
get something.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it on, but I am on the community foundation board, so I would abstain from that vote.
We'll pretend you never said anything about it. Okay, no,
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is the Fund 80, and if it's usable for that, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think that completes our agenda. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
can I make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes, a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Scott. Any other discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Right?
Aye. Opposed by nay. Meeting is adjourned. So.
Well, I'm good. Yeah, I was just, I'm like,
I didn't remember, so there must be one for every account, that's why there's so many.
oh, yeah.
There sure is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was doing this last year. But
Yeah.
you get the additional after 1 year. And usually.
I will also just
That's
say a special thanks to Amy. She bailed us out for graduation with the flower arrangements and so on. They were done pretty poorly, and she came, no hesitation,